don't believe that's a fucking song.
It's the same as much as the song is. I don't know what the fuck just happened. I don't really care. I'm gonna get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Is it made by the same person?
No, different guy. Bro, we sang that, like, my Xbox clan and I, we sang that song every time we won a match.
You see he has an Xbox clan?
I'm the only one that's still wearing the tag.
Alright, you...
An Xbox clan with the
No.
I'm a Ronin now, I'm by myself.
Alright, so he's a lone survivor of
I walk this
extinct.
lonely road.
An extinct Xbox group.
Yeah, I know you're trying to make this a race thing, but damn.
What? No, it's not a race thing.
I get it. I get it. Pick on the token white guy.
Wow.
You know, clan.
No. Oh my God. No. I was just saying that he had a group on the Xbox. Look, I didn't even play Xbox. I was on Nintendo, so there was like no online with my shit. So I'll be even lucky to even have a clan or a group. I mean,
whoa, hey, whoa.
Oh.
Wow.
As long as you're not wearing white with pointy hoods, I don't care.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe not white.
Unless you're what?
Unless you're Catholic.
Catholic.
That's where the lines are questionable because everybody's like, what the fuck? And it's like, yeah, they stole from the Catholic Church. That's why they wore that shit. Holy Roman Catholic Knights look like clan members because the clan took their design of wear and used it.
Because of the ghosts, the spirits.
And so the Catholic Church, whenever anybody comes out and makes that assumption, they're like, look, we were here first. We have documents proving it. And we didn't, and we discredited them when they came out. They're not part of the church.
History class.
They're like first, because one of them questioned them. They're like, first of all, why would we want to burn a symbol of Christ, which is a cross?
All right. History lesson for that.
Bro, it looks like he's getting interrogated with this line on him.
It's not interrogation.
It's like a forceful history lesson. It's like a forced history lesson.
Like, I don't
Bro, your face looking at me, you look like you're terrified as we're teaching you history.
He was like, I didn't want to know this, but very intrigued to know this.
No, it's just, what the fuck? Really,
that's the face you had. You had the face of, why the fuck are you telling me this?
Like, I didn't know that. I didn't think I want to know that. I'm not going to dive deep into it. It's just, what the fuck?
NSA agent.
Like
what the fuck is this Asian guy looking on his phone?
It's just like the swastika comes from Asian Buddhism symbol.
Well, they still use it in anime. Or try to.
Also known as the Celtic cross.
Yeah. I mean, they use it in anime still.
Yeah.
But but only when it's like, it's
religious.
like if it's a item or it's a thing that represents that part of
But the Nazis swastika goes a different way compared to the Buddhist.
Whenever they forgot the name of it. It's not Hindu. It's the other one.
Buddhism.
Not Buddhism. It's another one. I forgot what's it called. But yes, whenever it's a no. Shut up. Shut up. Now you're
just fucking with us.
Now we're just saying some random shit. No, but whenever it's an item that represents that, where that comes from, that's where they put that symbol because it represents it. You know, you can't talk about it without putting that symbol. You know. Anyway, enough history lesson. Welcome back to another episode of the SiXFrame Podcast. We are back, and today we have someone who wasn't here last time we were doing some recording, and it's Mr. Miles Zed, or whatever he wants to call himself, whatever symbol he wants to be. He's like Prince, I guess.
I wasn't ready for
Prince? I'm not as cool as you.
Wow. Rest in peace.
That guy was cool.
Prince?
I
never.
Purple
Really?
Rain, my guy.
Hold on. No, let's not do this, alright? We're going to be a whole day
Yeah.
talking about Prince. Because he doesn't know.
Indoctrinate this man later.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Whoa. Easy on the word indoctrinate. But so for this podcast, we're gonna go back to a previous episode of, cartoons that shaped us. Even though the beginning part of this conversation had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Not even close. So this is the cartoons that shaped us, part 2. This time with our friend.
Miles.
This time with our friend Miles.
I'm sorry, version, not virgin. That's my fault.
All right.
I'm dead serious. I think I said virgin instead of version.
Okay. Cartoons that shaped us, part 2. This time with Miles. Before we start, I want to give you, Miles, the reason why I proposed this question, this topic for this podcast is because in the few or 3 days or months, weeks, whatever, because the time moves different for us now, I was inspired because I was watching a lot of old cartoon documentaries. I was also watching a lot of cartoons from Fleischer, so I was watching a lot of Popeye and a lot of the old Superman cartoons. And it just got me thinking, I watched these because they were part of, in some way, most of them were in my childhood, but they were part of why I love animation. Because I saw it.
As a kid growing up.
Exactly. But not exactly when I was 5 or 6. I saw this when I was a teenager. Later half. So anyway, I was like, oh man, but everybody has a story like this. So that is the reason why for that question. And so last episode we went in depth. I went for myself. I went a little bit in time talking about my origins of my fondness for cartoons, and the reason why I but the reason why I chose to study animation. Learn the arts, as people would say. So let's take it away for you, man. Let's see what you got to say. What you got? What got you into liking it? What got you into wanting to study it, or what other things that combines with it made you influence?
Well, I think if I got to think back to day one of me really thinking about what inspired me into getting into, I guess you could say, studying, which led into the shaping into animation, was probably when I was little. I just used to draw anything I could.
Is there a reason why you started drawing?
No, it was just little, you draw stupid stick figures, cats, dogs, stuff like that. And then when I really started watching cartoons, you would mimic the drawings and start, trying to make them look as best as they can, even if it's with crowns or whatever, with pencil. And, some of my earliest drawings were either Spider-Man or Batman Beyond. And for the longest time, it was always those characters. And then eventually I was like, okay, let me see how they did this. How do I get the body shape right? Because his head's the size of his body over here. And so I started going to my library and looking up how to draw books, cartoonist stuff. And we had a few how to draw Looney Tune books in my library in grade school. So I checked those out a couple while, and that's what led me into Chuck Jones and Tex Avery and stuff like that. And I learned how to do simple squashing and stretching before I even learned what the principles of animation were.
Oh, fuck. So how y'all even get animation?
We got lucky, man. That thing was ready to fall apart. That's how old that book was.
God damn.
Yeah. So, but it was cool, you see, I don't know the actual name of the character, but the wolf character, Tex Avery's wolf.
Yeah.
They made fun of him in The Mask.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and they showed you how he broke down this devil-looking dog-looking character into this cartoony villainous semi-anti-hero character and the guy you would root for, even though he may not get the bone he wants.
Hyper horny.
Yeah.
He's a horny character.
Oh, Jessica. Remember, he'd be like, was it the
he was
like after Jessica Rabbit or whatever?
No, it'd be the Little Red Riding Hood.
No, like the
Tex Avery wolf.
Yeah, but there was one where he like the bit he did with like on the Jim Carrey's The Mask, where he's at the bar and he's watching the girl sing and he's like whistling and hollering.
Yeah, that's the Little Red Riding Hood from Tex Avery. That's he made them into that version where she's a lounge singer and and then the Big Bad Wolf goes in to see
with the heartthrob.
Yeah, he's all dressed up in a suit and he's watching,
came out like a pimp.
Watching her sing, and he's like, oh, and he starts doing the hollering, the classic hollering, whistling, and eyes popping out. Yeah. That's the stuff, man. That's the stuff. Well, we'll get you into that.
But just went from the lines of that, and then it was, reading comics and watching just cartoons on reruns. And, when, like, the best example I can give you is, I was really young when Batman Beyond came out. I was like 2 years old. And so I just Toonami on reruns, watching that. And sometimes with VHSs, would pause it and just look at how they would throw a punch, like how far it would look, and be like, okay, that looks a little elongated, or okay, that looks about right. And then the same thing when it was on ABC Family before it became Freeform. That's how I watched Spider-Man the animated series, the 90s one.
Yeah, the 90s one.
And just, that's what really drew me in, because I also got a lot of How to Draw Spider-Man books at the Scholastic Book Fair, because that was like the cheapest things you could buy.
Yeah.
And in my school, those were the cheapest books you could buy, were the How to Draw books.
Yep.
And they gave you like free wax paper and stuff like that. Well, when you ran out of the wax paper, what do? Use
your composition notebook.
Yeah.
And you either trace it and take forever going slow to make sure you line it up right, or you do your best to mimic it. And then you, like the other books, How to Draw books, then they show you like, oh, you draw a circle, then you draw a square, then you draw this, and then you have a head, and then you do this to make this into a body, and then you got joints and all that other stuff, and then you draw around it, and there you go, you got a character.
So what you say was you pretty much went through all the things like comic books and animation. Which one was the most that impacted you the most?
I would have to say animation, because comic books were a good, I guess you could say, milestone.
Yeah. But
I kind of stopped, but I kept watching cartoons. It wasn't always like the super action-y, Spider-Man, Batman Beyond. Eventually it was like Ed, Edd and Eddy and Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and stuff like that. And it was like, hey, this guy literally drew a blue thumb and he's a character. So it's like, okay, let me try drawing crazy stuff and see what I can do.
And so, yeah.
Bro, Mac was just a square with a triangle.
And what would you say, which is the more impactful, Cartoon Network? Were you a Cartoon Network kid? Or Nickelodeon?
I would say I watched Cartoon Network more, only because of Toonami. But I feel like in my early days, I was more of a Nickelodeon kid. Yeah. Because I watched Rugrats, I watched Cat Dog, I watched We Are Monsters, the original SpongeBob, all those Rocket Power,
of course,
all of that. And what's that show that Amanda Bynes was on? All that and stuff like that. Those skits were good.
Those are some good skits, bro.
Those are good skits.
And it's like, just the classic Nicktoon shows were always,
Hey, dog, you forgot one.
Which one?
The one that repped the street.
The what?
Hey, Arnold!
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about another one. The one with the wallaby.
Yeah.
Rocco. I was like, oh yeah. how could I forget Hey Arnold, man? That was bro. Just that show alone, so many life lessons, and back then parents weren't really paying attention, but the parents who did, they're like, don't watch that show, and I'm like, why? This teaches you life lessons, my guy. I had a friend who lived next door to me for the longest time. His mom was like, oh, you can't watch that show, and I was like, why? This is actually a good show. It actually teaches you life lessons and stuff. So, I mean, it was
life is unfair.
I know, right?
And also how look at all the misfits that were in Arnold's apartment with his grandparents. They were all over they were from all over. They were kooky. They were funny. Grandma was freaking on meth every day. The grandpa was always talking about some Vietnam War flashback.
I mean, I don't think she was on meth, but she was.
Bro, she was on something.
She was trying to fight the power every day.
She a freedom fighter.
Can I ask you this? Do you remember Disney?
Yes, during that time. Yeah.
Do you remember that old time slot for Disney called Old Disney, where they would show Zorro?
Yes.
And a wonderful time. And Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, the old version.
The House of Mouse or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That where it was like he had like a club or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Timon and Pumbaa, Aladdin. There was another show I watched with that I can't remember. Oh, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.
Yeah. So, see, I told you that it exists. Because I was having...
And you know who voices Buzz? Hey, Peter.
Oh, yeah.
Then later, Tin Man took over. It's a whole thing.
Oh, damn.
But So what would you say will represent your era? Because, we're jumping back and forth, but for all those cartoons that you have...
That really stuck with me for it's hard to pick one because I can narrow it down to two.
Yeah.
And that would be, Spider-Man the Animated Series and Batman Beyond.
So now,
honestly, it sounds like Batman Beyond had a huge impact. Like what did it shape you into? Like what did Batman Beyond do to you to like
when that show first came out? Life was pretty good, and then they kept playing reruns on Cartoon Network, and some stuff happened in my life that put me in a dark hole at a young age. And that show itself just took me from doom and gloom to, come on, Terry, I know you can do it. If you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. And
that's what really stuck with me.
Oh, wow. One that actually gives a life lesson.
And that's what kept me.
It gave you hope?
Because there's an episode, I always forget the name of it, but and I think it's called Terry's Missing. And it's an episode where he followed a guy who was setting bombs. And he goes into the subway. And the bomb goes off. And he's trapped under there for 24 hours with this kid. And him and the kid, they're talking. And he's low on jet fuel and stuff like that. He's only got a few explosive batarangs. And they're trying to get their way out. And it's like the kid keeps asking. He's like, why do you even try? And he's like, well, I got people who care about me. And I know they're worried about me. So I got to get back. What about you? You're just down here by yourself. And he's like, I don't have anybody who cares about me. And so it's like the entire time they're conversing and talking about how, hey, you can either look at life as a big old middle finger and not care, or you can look at that middle finger and say, okay, what's around the hand? There's someone's face. You can talk to them, understand why they hate you, and understand what's going on in life to make you understand their perspective and, try to understand the reasoning of why that person's in that position.
Damn.
I loved how it ended because it was a lot of... It kind of felt like they were trying to make this kid the new Robin, but I'm glad they didn't do that because it would have been a little weird. But I love how it was... They both used each other to get out of the collapsed subway, which shows, it's okay at times to lean on other people and ask for help.
Yeah.
That's why I really liked the... the name of the animator.
Bruce Timm.
Yeah, that's why I really liked his spin on the DC not comics, cartoons, is because even in like the the crazy action, what the heck is going on stuff, there was always some sort of lesson if you dive deep into what
there's a lot of human stories in those. What Bruce Timm did for a lot of those DC animated shows, he put a lot of humanization into them, and really that was like those first early cartoons. I didn't go too deep with Batman and those shows, 'cause I love Batman, the original, because that show in particular was like a show that it doesn't hold your hand. Well, relatively it doesn't hold your hand. It's still a kid's show, but it tries not to talk down to you. There was a lot of shows back then, for the most part, were talking down to you, or everything was a message, a PSA, right? Those are those cartoons, those early Saturday cartoons,
the kids WB
exactly.
berries.
Because for the most part, they're trying to sell you on a toy or something, and you can't tell these elaborate stories because people will get mad or whatever.
You said PSA, and I just remembered like every ending episode of Sailor Moon. Hey kids, this is what Sailor Moon says. Yes, even though they don't have any PSA about anything at all. So from there, what brought you? Because when we first met you, you were learning film, right? Was there any transition from that, or was it like you always liked this, but when it came down to, say, from our perspective, when we first saw you, when it comes down to like going to school, you did film instead of animation. So what? Well, when I originally went to pick the degree I wanted, I had selected animation as the second option in case I wasn't accepted in film. But to get before that, I'd always enjoyed animation, not like just anime and cartoon style. I mean, like, I've enjoyed watching behind the scenes and seeing the process of like, yo, how did they make Green Goblin fly by in that first Spider-Man movie? Or watching Van Helsing from 2005, like, how did you make that hair on that werewolf look that goddamn good? And that shine in the middle of the night, and like you got the lighting on him looking good. It's like it's a computer image. That's all it is. You made it look good, and it still holds up today. Go watch an original DVD version of Van Helsing when it came out. That still holds up today. And the story is questionable. The story, it needed some work, but the CG for most of it, especially with those werewolves, still holds up today. And that's always fascinated me. So I was like, okay, I enjoy filming some things. I enjoy taking some photos. I enjoy editing. And that's why I was like, okay, I'll go for film. And starting film and going into it. And I was like, I already know all this stuff. It doesn't really interest me. And I sat in an animation class one time. And I literally stopped working and just listened to the whole class. And I was like, I want to do this. This is more of what I want to do. And I think it was texturing too. I was sitting there. It was before I even met you guys. I was sitting there and I was like, I want to do this. So,
oh my god,
2 quarters go by and I eventually get enough, like, because I don't know what, with our head of film / animation / whatever she was in charge of. Oh, well, do you really want to switch? Yes, I want to switch to animation. Do you really want to switch? Well, think it over a quarter. Next quarter comes. Blah, blah, blah. Finally, I walked out and I turned back around. I walked back in and I said, sign it or I'm not leaving. We've been talking about this for 3 months. I want to do animation. She signed it. I took it to the office. Stamp of approval. Next quarter, I'm in animation.
And I want to say, all classes, texturing.
I like.
Texturing 2 got you to animation.
Well, it's because they were talking about, the backgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I really like matte paintings and stuff like that. That's the one thing I like. Like the class I did the best in was texturing and matte paintings and stuff like that. because they're like, well, how did you get this idea for this artwork in the background? And I literally showed the process, and the teacher had to stop me, and she's like, Miles, I understand what you're saying, but I'll be here till the end of the class if you explain how you got this. Because she's like, where did you find this image and this image and this image? And I show like 50 pictures of this thing that I used to make like this wooded Amazon looking rainforest with a beach front and all this other stuff with a megalodon jumping over a rainbow. Yeah, but I got that A+, and that's all that matters.
Get your grind, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm good with like storyboard writing and texturing. It's kind of the other stuff I was like, I'm okay with it. I wouldn't say I'm great at it.
But, you know, when they got you there, when you watch those cartoons, especially Spider-Man and Batman Beyond, was those the thing that pushed you? And how did it expand, you know, from where you were? I know we're going back, but like from where you were when you were watching those cartoons to how you expand, you know, from watching all the things that you saw on Cartoon Network to getting to know yourself from watching behind the scenes stuff. What I'm trying to say, what's the other catalyst or driving force that might have led you to be more active for animation?
Well, besides cartoons and movies, I guess I would say video games.
Video games?
Yeah. Not because, you know, like the basic, oh, it's a shooter and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know, all my friends at the times, they were like, oh, multiplayer this, multiplayer that. Even to this day, I still don't care about multiplayer. I've always cared more about the story. The world building, the lore, all of that. So if like you
feel more like a writer.
Yeah.
So like, is there any like animations that's like that sort of like got you into like writing?
Or was it video games?
It could have been video.
It was a bit of both.
Which animation got you into writing though? I'm curious. I mean, we'll touch on video games, but like which animation, like which one had like such a good writing that you're like, okay, I see what y'all cooking up here.
That's a little tough.
Yeah, because I know like our childhood cartoons didn't really have much writing or narrative. I mean, they did have some.
It did have some
at a basic level. Not to like the level of like, you know, anime, like what anime gives you, but like more of like a short dosage.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it was like if you're gonna talk about like classic cartoons, like
probably
the setups.
The animated Hellboy series that came out that were special on DVDs because I liked the world building that spun off from the movies into the animated series. You know, Blood and Iron and Thunder and whatever the other one was.
Yeah.
You know, they got Ron Perlman back to come do the voices. They got the other guys to come back and do the voices. And I thought, oh, this is cool. It's the actual voices from the actors. And they're building the story of in between movie 1 and movie 2. And, like, this is a side stuff that happened in between. And, hey, here's Liz working with them, with Abe and Hellboy. And they're all doing their adventures. And here's lore. And then you see the second animated movie that came out. You're like, oh, they're making small references to the other one, but you kind of don't need to see the other one to understand what's going on. And so I guess that would probably be the cartoon that got me into, you know, breaking down lore and wanting to write.
Oh.
And I guess you could say video game wise, that one's a little more tougher. Because I can list like 5 modern ones, but if I really had to think of like what lore really got me into it.
Well, it doesn't have to be lore. You could just pick the one that is the most memorable. Because that's always is the catalyst. The one that's most memorable, you know. Like, I think I forget to mention for myself was Toy Story, the first Toy Story. Because I had the VHS tape for Toy Story.
That shit broke too.
No, that shit did not break.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that one survived for a long time. It was one of those films too. I forgot to mention it, but because I you know, there's so many cartoons that I watched over the years, but that one's like kind of mind blowing to me because that was the time where 3D was becoming a thing, and that movie at the time, even though it already came out a few years ago, right? But when I got that movie, Toy Story 2 was about to come out.
Right.
So watching it later was like, oh shit, this is different, you know. I'm kind of scared because I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do 2D, you know. Fast forward, you know. I'm doing 3D. I end up doing 3D at school. But yeah, you know, one of those things, those catalysts, those little, you know, whatever it is, the most memorable one is the one that, oddly enough, is the one that kind of pushes you, you know, for whatever it is that you like. It pushes you to do it or to inspire you to do something like, you know. So what video game, you know, I know I cut you out, but what video game would that be?
I guess I could say from my childhood would probably be the first Halo that
I knew it.
Easy.
First Halo.
But after
that... No, you can't take it back.
No, I'm just saying childhood-wise. That was probably what led me into being more into, you know, let me explore games and see what they're actually about, and not just because they're, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but fun and cartoonish and just, collect these many gems and you get the, you know, the Jabberwocky to ride around on, like Jak and Daxter.
So he wasn't a fan of collect. I mean,
no, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying
no,
when you're young, you play like Jak and Daxter, Mario, and or Sonic, and you collect rings and stuff, and you're like, yay, I beat the boss. Halo was the first game I really got into, something that was that action packed and that, you know, I guess you could say,
gave you a reason
lore driven, because it wasn't just I'm shooting aliens, or I'm shooting these zombie creatures called the Flood that are an alien species or some BS like that. It's like, how is this soul surviving super soldier gonna take on this entire army after you crash land on a alien, you know, space station in the middle of nowhere? Oh, what's this? You got this mutant zombie thing coming at you as well while you're fighting this other army? Oh my god. And so I'm like sitting there like with the controller in my hand, biting my fingers like, how are you going to get out of this, Chief?
Well, you biting your finger. You got to play that shit, boy.
I'm playing with my fingers. And then, you know, that last mission when you're escaping Halo and you're in the Warthog and you're riding through tunnels and stuff, and sometimes your Warthog gets stuck and you gotta back up and then like go, and explosions are happening behind you, and you're like, holy crap. And meanwhile, my friend playing co-op is sitting in the minigun on the back just spinning circles, firing like, we're gonna die. But that's probably like the first game that really got me into like, hey, what's this world? I mean, I played all the other ones. I freaking bought a book about the more history of the Spartans and stuff like that.
Was it like
I can see why Halo's that deep to you, man. I respect that.
Yeah, there's the excitement level when you play video games, you know.
With the story.
Were you know, because that's the thing about video games, like you know, there's a sense that you're there because, you know, you're controlling the character, you know, so, you know, in that form, you're experiencing it the same as you're experiencing the character, you know, so it's a more, what would you say that?
Immersion,
yeah, it's just that immersion faction, because you don't get that when you're watching cartoons, but at the same time you do. You know, it's just you have to look at it. You know, it's many different people get different things, right? From different immersions, from different mediums. You know, so what would you say that the emergence of those two combined? What was that for you when you were a kid? Like, or what was that for you artistically? You know.
I guess Halo really opened my eye to seeing how worlds could be built, not just written.
Yeah.
In a way, and just even though they were simple graphics, shapes, stuff like that, it still was really good. Like there's a literal mission where you go into like a jungle part on this space station, and the way they did that cutscene was like a scene from Predator when they're first introducing the flood. You're seeing a recording through the Marine's helmet, and Chief's like trying to find where this group went. They're like, hey, I gotta find this guy, and he went with this group, so let me go find him. And you're like, you see dead bodies everywhere, and you're like, what is going on here? And when you first see the flood, you're kind of like, holy crap, what is that thing? Why is it coming at me? You stay away from me. And then you just gotta run, and you run out of ammo, and you're just like Cortana, we got a jet. Get out of here, let's go. And so I just, the whole thing of not just writing a story that is that crazy yet impactful, but, just being able to actually build it and see what it looks like.
You also watch movies, so how that transpired? Was it I think I said this before, but was it together, hand to hand, movies and animation, or just
it was
separate?
It was movies, animation, and video game around when I was
at the same time.
Yeah, cartoons when I was little, and then I started getting into video games when I was a preteen, and then I got more into movies when I was like 12 and up, and I just had like AMC and Turner Classic Movie in the backgrounds at times, and I would just stop and watch the films and would be inspired by just like simple classic noirs and spaghetti westerns and stuff like that, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then you'd see some classic medieval movie playing, and then the next thing you know, Gladiator's playing in the background. Yeah. Are you not entertained and all this stuff?
What's funny about Gladiator, back then we used to live in an apartment, and the way we do our laundry, we have to go to a laundromat, right? So every time I go to the laundromat, shout outs to China One. That's what it's called. It's called China One, all right? And
hey, I had a Chinese place called China Pan, so you go.
So I mean, that's what they call it that. I don't know why. I think they changed the name of it. But anyway, they will have, and it's funny, they will have a playpen, right? I was like, probably
like McDonald's.
No, not McDonald's. More like it's it's actually like the Rugrats playpen type of thing.
Oh, at the malls.
Yeah, but in the laundromat. So they'll have that, and then they will have like the gumball and the plastic ninja toys. Where you put the quarter and you get them, and they will have a TV, and they will always. So this one had cable, so they will play Cartoon Network all the time until it goes to Adult Swim and they start airing those weird ass commercials.
All the kids out of the pool.
Yeah, all those weird ass commercials and stuff. But but next to it, they will have a theater room where they just pop in a VHS tape and they just play it on repeat, whatever.
Yeah.
And there they will play Gladiator. There they play Gladiator and Rush Hour. And I remember watching Gladiator for the first time there, uncut, because this is the actual movie. This is not a TV movie. Like, I'm not watching it from the TV movie. This is an actual, copy of the movie.
So you saw the guy get eaten by the lion.
Yes, so I saw a guy. I was fucking terrified because that was like one of the earliest rated R movies I ever watched.
Same here. No, that's the second rated R movie I watched.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest. This is not the first rated R movie I saw, but they're one of the earliest that I actually watched with no parents' supervision. And I'm like, what the fuck? And they had that fight with the lion mask dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then that's also where I watched Rush Hour 1 for I think the first time, because I remember it was in the theaters, but I never saw. We talked about this in the other one, but I never been to a movie theater. The first time I ever watched a movie is when Hercules came out first. When Hercules came out, Disney's Hercules, that was in 1997. And the second time I ever went back to movie theaters was when my sisters got a job, and they were like, "Oh, let me take you to movies," right? And the second time I ever been to movie theaters to watch Lilo and Stitch. So it was a huge gap of movies I never watched in the theaters. So that, you know.
I can't remember my first movie, but I think the first Disney movie I saw in theaters was probably Emperor's New Groove.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then it was Atlantis.
I don't know if
I've never seen Atlantis.
You never seen Atlantis?
No.
It's underappreciated.
It's underappreciated.
It looks very nice stylized.
They say that it copies, Anno's Nadia, Secret Blue Water. That's what they say in the internet, but it's not proven, although a lot of it mimics the same scenes. It's just like, Simba.
Classic Disney.
Got him.
Disney World.
So with movies, how it ties into yourself, is that the same, like, building a new world, or is just more like script writing or the shots, or...
I think what gets me in most movies, and I find, because sometimes I'll watch movies with friends or family, and sometimes they're into it, or sometimes they're bored, or sometimes they're like, why do you like this movie? And I'll sit there, and the number one thing that always gets me every time is the cinematography. If you can make the world look real, believable, lived in, lush, vibrant, whatever, I'm hooked. I want to know what happens.
No matter what it is, right?
Like there's a crappy, I won't say crappy. The story is good. The actors did a really good job, but you could tell the movie was on a budget.
Yeah.
And it's called Stakeland. It is think of a zombie apocalypse, but it's with vampires. And so It is a world where you see through the eyes of this young boy who, 14, 16, something like that. This happened. His whole family's killed. He's taken up by this old guy who's known as Mr. And he's teaching him how to survive this world full of like these zombie vampire creatures and, just find a safe place to live. And it's him documenting himself the entire time of like the in-between slow parts so they don't feel slow and forever. Like there's action, there's story, there's dialogue, and then there's in-between parts where he's sitting there and he's like, even though this happened to this person, Mr. says we got to do this and keep doing this, otherwise we turn into them and we die. And it takes you out of like this elusive crazy shot of like they're driving and there's not talking, they're just driving, focused on the road, getting to the next position or where they're the next safe place they're going to. And it's just him like detailing like, when I was young, this happened to me. Mr. said to grow up and do all this other stuff, simple stuff like that. But it really immerses you into the storytelling of what the world's trying to convey to you. Which is probably why I like the cult classic 28 Days Later, because of the cinematography, because that was revolutionary, because that was really the first time they had shot an entire film on digital camera.
Yeah.
Everything before then was all film. And that's what gave it that gritty, grainy, super bright flare light look that they had.
Yeah.
Like the scene where he's walking in London, and you're like, wow, it's really bright. And then you see stills of the photos they took that day. And it was overcast and all this other stuff's happening. And it's like, how did they make it look so bright in certain areas and dark in other areas? And make the rain look like crazy like that? And it was just because of the way the pixels picked everything up with the reflection of the light. And that's what really brought my attention to, because the cinematography and the lighting, the way they did certain things were crazy, amazing, and really put a sense of fear when you're like, oh crap, are the infected going to get them, or are they going to be able to escape? Because there's a legit scene they show in the trailer that still got me even watching the movie, because I told you jump scares are the only thing to get me. There's a legit scene where the girl's backing the taxi up with this guy in the back, and hits the brakes, and this one infected dude is just standing behind the car with his eyes all bloodshot, breaks the window, pulls him out. But when she hits the brakes and you just see him light up, you're like, oh crap, I didn't know he was there. And it's just the way they did the editing. It was like, you know, it was kind of similar to stuff like, you know, Snatch and stuff, but the way they held shots for certain times where, you know, you really see like, here's the abandoned streets of London, here's the sides of Scotland and all these other stuff, and Wales and all these other areas they're driving through to try to get out. It's just, it really immerses you to like, hey, something bad happened here, and this is what the world looks like 28 days later.
You just alluded to this, so you're not want to say obsessed, but you like zombies.
I would say more. Well, to get to that subject, I was into, to make the long story short, I was into vampires first before I went into zombies.
So I'll give you a general question. What got you into monsters then?
Spawn.
Just Spawn.
Spawn. That was the first.
No, the live action movie or
the live action movie.
Okay, yeah.
Because that was the first thing I ever watched. Spawn. That was the first rated R film I ever watched.
That one too, I watched in the.
That was the first R-rated movie I ever watched.
In the laundromat, I saw that movie.
And that's what really got me into like the dark, gritty heroes of like comic book industry and cartoons, which is probably why I like Batman a lot.
Because it just reminds you, right?
Yeah. The brooding hero that's trying to do good, but also has an agenda to like, you know, help himself in a way.
All right, but then from monsters, you know, then zombies, what specifically that genre, you know, you talked about it already with the movie that you were describing early, but that whole genre, that series, you know, because there's many different series, although they take place in, you know, similar situations, or they have similar situations. What keeps you just like, you know, watching this shit, you know?
I love the man versus nature dynamic, where just because, quoting Deacon from Days Gone here, just because the world goes to shit doesn't mean you have to. Everybody's still surviving. You know, just seeing how a world can go so bad and you still see people not willing to give up. They're still trying to find a way to survive, and that's really what, more than the monsters and then the zombies, it's more of like, I want to see how far this guy can go, what this woman can do, what this kid's willing to do to help his friends and families, you know, just survive the night or the day or the year or whatever, you know, just finding something to fight for.
Because that's the world that you interpret you capture in yourself, right?
Right.
Oh, it's nice. So, in all of that, for animation and for the media itself, you know, I know I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's like, for all that meant so much to you, what do you see, like, what do you think you're going to see, what do you expect to see more, you know, later on, like the newer things, or maybe there's some old stuff that you feel like they should expand upon, or there's stuff that was overlooked that you want it to be more showcased?
There's a lot of irons to pull out of that fire, but
hey man, I mean, listen, you don't have to use all of them.
I'm an overall fan of many things, but if I have to stick to like a few, I probably feel like, you know, controversy or not, I feel like Last of Us could expand a little more on the world and not just follow Ellie's story. Mm-hmm. You know, because 2, I felt like was put together in the wrong way. Not a bad story way, but like just the way, like I've explained it before to you guys personally, but I would have edited it in a way to where you hated to play as Abby. I would have had it where you play as Abby first, and then you find out what happens, and then you play as Ellie, and then you put the pieces together, and then you go, oh, that's why we don't like Abby.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, this is what Abby does. Oh, now you gotta play as her. And everybody's like, I don't want to play as this lady. I hate her. Why are you making me play as her? But, you know, I like what they did with Abby. Get someone else, not in that area or wherever, explain their side of the story. Because, you know, like, was it John and Henry or something like that?
Yeah, some typical white.
Yeah, but Henry
guy
and his brother, you know, like, who was Henry before his brother was born? Because his brother was born in that time like Ellie was.
Yeah.
It's 20 years later. So Henry was a kid when this infection broke out. So what's his story? How did he survive all these years? You know, more of Bill's backstory. I mean, the show kind of explains it a little more, but the game just... Here's Bill. He hoards stuff. That's it. You get a shotgun from him. Yeehaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that yeehaw was personal.
And it's like, and that's why I like Bill a lot in the game. Nothing against the show, because I actually liked that episode, even though people didn't. But I was like, I wanted to see more of like the survivalist Bill that you get in the game, explaining more of like, this is how he locked down the town. This is how this happened. This is how he got. This is
the
how
intrigue of like surviving.
Yeah, like this is how he builds his traps around this old town. This is how he uses clickers and runners to secure the perimeter of the town he lives in, and this is how he makes these little explosive devices that he hangs up without tripping them. And you know, it's like, how did he meet Frank, like the game wise Frank, you know, because in the show I like how they introduced Frank and how they explained everything, and that was a good way to build a relationship. But
yeah,
like, that's the show. You can change it and do whatever you want because it's a show. You know, you can change the lore for a show a little bit. But as long as you respect the original that it's based off of, which I feel like the show did, which is why it's like the best video game show out there. I'm not the paid sponsor. I'm just saying, like, out of every video game stuff that's came out ever.
I mean, you could count them in your hands. There's not that many.
No, I'm talking about shows, movies, TV shows, cartoons and stuff like that. That is like the perfect way to respect the lore, but add and take away certain parts to make it seem like it's a continuous story and it's not too long.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would hate Joel. Because
Yeah.
Joel is a savage in the game.
And, well, a lot of people would say Sonic, but I haven't seen the Sonic. You've seen the Sonic films, man.
Oh, yeah.
I
So
saw the first one.
What would you say? What do you think of those films?
I mean, we're talking about Sonic?
Yeah, we're talking about Sonic. Listen,
Gotta go
man,
fast.
Listen, man, we go around this bitch, bro. I mean, you don't have to say a lot of it. You can just, you know,
I mean,
piggyback on what he
like,
says, you know.
I mean, in terms of like lore, I won't say they're following it to a T.
Well,
but like Sonic has their own, you know, the Archie comics lore, or whatever. And,
But not so much lore as in respecting the original content.
No, yeah, but that's because like it's not hard to like make a medium, like a different medium out of a video game. Everything's already laid out for you. All you gotta do, if you're gonna make it to a movie or even a cartoon show, all you gotta do is just like figure out what the whole concept is, and you just sort of just base it around that. You know, you base it around the world that the characters are in. So even with the Sonic movies, you don't have like, you have Green Hill Zone in quotation mark. Mm-hmm. It's the name of the first level, but it's also the town that Sonic just sort of gets transported to, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, the continuity is quote unquote there. Like, you don't really see humans like that, but you can also say that it had that same essence as Sonic X, you know? So it's like, when it comes to like the Sonic film, like they're fine as Sonic films. They did this job. I think they took the Sonic Boom Knuckles approach, but a little bit better because he's still because like personally I like the Sonic X version of Knuckles. That's why I'm saying that.
Super edgy.
Yeah, super edgy. Always want to fight. Always want to protect the Master Emerald. All that stuff.
Just sitting there. My knuckles are itchy.
He's the same Knuckles there, but he's also gullible, just like the one from Sonic X.
Yeah.
but he's also has that little like kitty, like when he becomes friends with Sonic and Tails, like near the end, he has this little kitty, kind of dumb, very just like the one from Sonic Boom, the one that's like the big dumb lovable one.
Yeah, the lovable dumb guy, the dumb jock.
Says smart things at times, and you sit there and you look at him and you're like,
yeah.
What?
So, but you respect it though. You respect it, and it's not like it diminishes like the Sonic franchise or anything. It adds its own things to it to make its own lore for whatever they're making it for. Because even like the original Sonic games, their lore is as basic as ever. It's literally just collect this and stop this dude.
Yeah,
that's it.
Another good example I can tell you about more of what you're saying, where they respect the, I guess you could say the lore or the
just the creation,
the main product.
Yeah,
is the animated movie that came out on Netflix of The Witcher, The Nightmare of the Wolf.
Yeah,
it is the world of The Witcher. It is the lore of The Witcher, but it is not following Geralt. Yeah. You're following Papa Vesemir when he was younger. And it explains a story that happened to him, why there's not so many Witchers left and all this other stuff. And I was like, you know what? Good on you, Netflix. You did a good one. That's good. It doesn't have to be accurate to the books, movies, games, anything. That was good. I like what you did there.
Yeah, that's a good movie. That's a movie you need to watch.
The animation is good. It's like the same people. Isn't it the same people who did Castlevania?
Yep. Same people that did
really
Castlevania.
Good. The story's good. It doesn't feel rushed at times. You get to see little Geralt.
And it's self-contained. It's self-contained. You don't have to. You don't have to play the game to watch it.
You don't have to read the books. You don't have to play the game. You could just watch it, and it's a standalone.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of liked those Hellboys. Is because whether you knew the story of the first movie or not, you could watch them by themselves and be like, oh, okay, cool, this is what's going on.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I only got one question for you. Because, I've been silent for, the majority of it, but it's mostly because, the question that I was
Have I been putting you in awe?
Honestly, yeah. It's I'm literally seeing, a friend of mine unravel. I'm literally seeing how you've been built up to the person that you are now. And it's very intriguing, really. Because, I've always, I already hear you talk about A, B, and C on our personal times. And
that's Halo, Mass Effect, and Zombies. So.
And, now after hearing all the inspirations, all the things, everything that just, sort of just built you to the man you are now, I have a deeper appreciation and respect for all the things that you know and love. So, with that said, I just want to ask you, just what medium just really shaped you? Because it sounds like you had a good amount of cartoons that sort of helped you out in your earlier parts. Then it sounds like video games helped you in your middle ages. I say middle ages like you fucking 40 years old.
For the crusade!
Middle ages.
I mean, when you're your preteens going to your adolescence, and then from then on you have films, and you have all these movies and other a little bit more mature content hitting you there. And then from then on, you sort of went to college to pursue film, to probably go into some sort of story building creative things with great cinematics and a lore that just explores the world and the character that lives in that world. And then you said you switched over to animation to sort of go for that more. So with all that said, it's just what do you feel really shaped you? What do you feel really made you to the man you are today? Because from my perspective, I'm seeing that film sort of built you up off the pedestals of both the old cartoons and video games. Not saying that you don't watch or play any other video games at all, but I'm just saying those two were more or less your pillars to everything else that you are now.
I guess you could say film, because if I got to think of one movie and one video game that really inspired me into wanting to shape a world or write a world or create a world like that, the movie would be Man on Fire.
Cool. Man on Fire. All right.
And funny enough, the video game that really got me into, wanting to see worlds more created like this, even though it's the third one in the series, I've really loved the way they did the story of flashbacks and bringing it to the time, which I made this joke before because the game is a lot like Man on Fire, Max Payne 3.
Ah, damn, I missed that one. No, I thought it was Mass Effect 3. Or
No.
Max Payne 3. All right.
No, Mass Effect is good, and I love the way they explain, you know, the lore of the planets, the species of aliens you interact with, and, you know, like, hey, how did Earth go from shooting bullets to frickin' laser guns in a matter of 20 years? And like 10 to 15 years, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what happened.
Yeah, but Mass Effect, you know, it has a lot of, it combines a lot of Star Trek lore.
The best way I can describe Mass Effect is it's Star Trek mixed with Halo.
And Lovecraft.
To a point. Two, yes.
Yes.
Harbinger.
There's you know, I don't know if you know this, but you know, was it Mass Effect 2 where they fuck up the ending?
The third one.
The third one. Yeah, it was the third one.
Where you have the three options?
Yeah, you had the three options. They fucked up the ending, and then they had to make a DLC ending to explain why the ending. They changed the ending.
Which you have to buy the Legendary Edition that came out a year ago, because if you have all three games like I do and you try to play them offline, you don't get the DLC for 3. You have to have Xbox Live. Yeah. So that means literally Mass Effect 3 from a 360 is just a brick now. If I want to play any of the DLC.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Max Payne. Tell us, Max Payne, what? Because I remember Max Payne as a game that
was a snarky cop. Edit that out.
I remember that game because my sister had a boyfriend, and he brought a bunch of games, right? That were, you know, Red M games that I was never get the chance to play ever. And I never owned a console, so he brought Max Payne, and I watched him play, and that shit was awesome.
Because I played Max Payne 1 and 2 when it came out, and I was like, this is a cool, gritty cop noir kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And the reason I loved 3 so much was because they kept that noir feeling in the flashbacks. Like when you see why he left New Jersey and all this other stuff, and how he frickin' got to South America, and how he became a private bodyguard for some rich guy and his family, and then bigger political plots happen, and you gotta fight your way out of it. And it's just like the way the cinematography was with the flashbacks, and like because it's a detective story, but it's also a survival story if you really think about it, because
just like Man on Fire, and
because he gets pinned for something he didn't do, and he's got to do it himself to say like, hey, I didn't do this, your boy over here did. And that's basically what happened in the story. And then you got a cop that's like, I'm trying to do the right thing with justice and stuff like that. And it just, the cinematography and the way how it cuts from the cold snowy night with the blue tint of New Jersey to, you know, different times of the days in South America, where he's doing a stealth mission to go try to pull this girl out who's been kidnapped, or in the middle of the day when it's like some Brazilian looking neighborhood from like, you know, like Fast and Furious, where the sun's super hot and it's very orange, and you're like, man, I could see the sweat coming down off him because it's so hot. And then my favorite thing about everything in the cutscenes was when the detective brain in him, you hear him like he's listening, and people are saying words, and the words would highlight like, wait a minute, that name and this and that, and you're putting the pieces together. And then you go back to a flashback like, wait a minute, why was this guy in New Jersey trying to recruit me to be private security for this guy? And then you find out later they were trying to make him the fall guy for some crazy hijacking that he stopped by himself. And it's like, this man will not die.
No, he just keeps taking pills, man.
Bro, no, like, you see the flashbacks and stuff, you're like, why won't you die? Like, he moved on past the death of his wife and daughter, and then he moved past the death of
Spoilers.
of Mona. No, they explained that in the first game.
I know, but you haven't.
Of is it
Max Payne.
Mona or Monica, the girl you meet in the first game?
Don't
The
know.
girl that, what's her name from that 70s show played in the live action movie?
Mila Kunis.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The live action ones, they have a live action Max Payne.
Well, it's
That one's terrible.
look, it's all right. They shot it, I will say, artistically, because when I saw those angels, I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I was like, they're fighting supernatural beings. I
was like, I don't remember that in the game. What is this?
Where are these demons and angels coming from?
That was their excuse to say how he was able to take shotgun after shotgun blast after he took the drugs.
Why?
Because he was some type of super soldier.
You know what's funny is that they did that because they want to. That was the main. That's why Last of Us show is good, because they took out that aspects of the gameplay, because it doesn't make sense to put that in the. You're
talking about the spores?
Yeah, like the spores, things like that. So they tried to put the gameplay, but the only way to do that is they have to make up some made up bullshit like angels and shit to justify him taking hits.
Bro, these things, it's weird because they look like demons, but they had angels' wings, and you're just like, what are you?
A creation of some man's mad.
But I will say, like, the way they shot with a scene where he was, drowning in the harbor, and he swam up, that was great, because that ice wasn't real ice. That was all wax. That was really good, Hollywood magic, like the snow and the ice that he broke through to get out. That was all wax. You could not tell me that was real ice.
All right, so that ends part 2 of the animation that shaped us. For people who are listening, it's not just the animation. It's also every medium that you may think of that inspire you, and this series is a good way to understand each other.
Yeah.
I can't. That's what I said. Like last time when we did this episode, I can't wait to talk to our other friends that follow the same journey as us to see what got them here. Yeah, what got them here. Doing a podcast sitting on the floor,
Oh yeah. If you guys didn't notice at this point, you didn't hear all the pitter patter of feet shifting. We are on the floor like we're sitting around a campfire,
telling war stories.
War stories.
Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song.
So stay tuned. This is a series that's gonna be happening alongside with whether we get to watch new shows or not, and
we are. And when we're ready to talk about it, we will spew about it.
RCAMPFIRESONG song.
So man, I can't wait. So yeah, see you.
Honestly, just based on this episode, I want to do an episode of like movies that scarred us.
Unless
no.
What do you mean no?
No.
We are.
Did you
digging,
stop?
We're digging for some oppression, bro.
No.
We are digging.
No.
Why not?
No.
Why?
No.
It'll be funny.
For you?
Yes. I
No.
mean, I'll share mine too. Because I was thinking.
Because last episode I shared
because it's not movies like you're thinking of horror, and I'm just like,
I'm not thinking about just horror.
Like last episode I shared to him that the first movie, and this is one of the movies that inspired me a lot, was The Land Before Time. Right? It was one of the earliest movies for me that kind of made me emotional, because the whole death scene with Littlefoot's mother really bothered me, because I'm very close to my mom, right? So watching, and anytime I see like a mom character appeared in anything and she's that always gets me. It gets me. I don't cry. I hold my emotions.
You gotta hold them.
But it does get me. It gets to me a lot.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be horror specific.
No, it doesn't have to be horror specific.
You're like super scarring, just like.
Yeah.
Something that just like sort of like messed you up.
It could also be silly.
It could be something silly.
Yeah.
I think I have something silly.
He knows not what you're thinking. Messing with people's minds.
Alright, we'll keep that.
That is the one.
Alright, don't tell me.
I'm not going in deep.
That's it.
I'm just saying that's the one thing.
Just have it ready when we're ready to talk about it. We'll
I'll tell you the name of the movie next time.
Yeah.
All right.
One that
All right,
really
guys.
pissed me off.
See y'all later. Hopefully this episode comes out.
It will.
And thank you for listening to another Six Frame Podcast. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, email us at sixframepodcast@gmail.com. That is sixframepodcast@gmail.com. You can also catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Six Frames. Don't forget to rate and follow us on our Apple Podcasts and Podbean. And our YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to Six Frames and ring that bell for notifications so you never miss another episode. So what are you waiting for, nerd? Subscribe, like, rate, do all that stuff. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.